They mocked your intuition. They chuckled under their breath when you warned them. They raised their eyebrows, exchanged glances, and labeled you dramatic, paranoid, or just too sensitive. But deep down, chosen one, you knew. You knew. Long before it unfolded. Before the cracks even began to show. Your spirit had already sounded the alarm. You've always had this gift, this sacred, sometimes painful ability to feel what others refuse to see. It's like standing on the shore and sensing the tsunami long before the waters pull back. But when you tried to explain, when you tried to share that knowing, they laughed. Not because they were evil, but because they were blind, spiritually asleep, tuned to a lower frequency that couldn't receive what your soul was broadcasting. You've been through this before, haven't you? Maybe it started young. You'd tell your family something felt off about someone, but they told you to be nice. Later, you warned a friend about a relationship, but they called you jealous. At work, you hinted that a major shift was coming, maybe even a fall, but they accused you of being negative. And then, it happened. Exactly as you said. The very thing they denied, dismissed, and disregarded showed up with undeniable clarity. And suddenly, you weren't the crazy one. You were the confirmation. But let's be honest, being right didn't feel like victory. Not for you. Because you never warned them for clout. You didn't speak up to prove a point. You did it out of love, out of spiritual responsibility. Because when you feel that spiritual fire in your bones, that whisper from deep within, that message that won't let you sleep, you have to say something. Even if no one listens, that's the burden of the anointed. You carry a voice within you that refuses to stay silent, a frequency that vibrates with divine urgency. You don't just observe the surface of things, you see what's underneath. The energy, the patterns, the spiritual tension building like a pressure cooker. And even when others are celebrating, you're feeling the quiet before the quake. It's lonely, isn't it, being the one who knows too much? You're not trying to be the bearer of bad news. You're just attuned to truth. And truth, chosen one, doesn't always come dressed in comfort. Sometimes, it shows up in sackcloth, bringing warnings instead of promises. And when you're the mouthpiece, you're the one who gets ridiculed. There's a reason the prophets were never popular in their own time. Look at Noah. He spent years building an ark, warning people of a flood when there wasn't a cloud in the sky. They mocked him, laughed at him, went on with their lives while he hammered and preached. Until the sky broke open. And it was too late. The same spirit that moved in Noah moves in you. It's not about building boats anymore. It's about building awareness. Warning of spiritual storms, emotional floods, and energetic shifts. You may not always have the words, but your spirit knows. And when you do speak, people can't always handle what you carry, but that doesn't mean you're wrong. That doesn't mean you're imagining it. You are picking up on frequencies others can't hear. Just because they don't feel the tremor doesn't mean the earth isn't shaking. Just because they laugh at the lightning doesn't mean the storm isn't coming. Chosen one, you're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to be true. You're here to walk in alignment with the divine, not to win popularity contests. And sometimes, that means bearing the weight of knowing before it's fashionable to believe. They'll call you dramatic until the very thing you warned them about crashes through their front door. Then they'll say, "Why didn't you say something?" And you'll be left standing there, spirit weary, knowing you did, over and over again. Let's talk about your gift for a moment. This isn't just intuition. It's not just a gut feeling. It's a spiritual endowment, a prophetic frequency. You walk into rooms and read them. You sense when something is off. You know when something is about to break, whether it's in relationships, organizations, or even the world itself. That kind of clarity is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it protects you. On the other, it isolates you. Because when people don't want to deal with the truth, they exile the one who brings it. They want comfort, not clarity, illusion, not illumination, and yet, you still care. You still show up. You still try. Even after being laughed at, ignored, ghosted, or gaslit, you still open your mouth when spirit presses you to speak. That's courage. That's obedience. That's what makes you chosen. But hear this, just because they didn't listen the first time doesn't mean the message was in vain. Seeds were planted. And when the time is right, when the rain starts falling, those seeds will burst open with the fruit of realization. They'll remember your words, your eyes, your warning. And in that moment, the truth will echo louder than the laughter ever did. You see, you're not meant to just predict events. You're meant to prepare souls. You're a forerunner, a divine announcer. You clear the spiritual path long before others even know they're on a journey. That's why your life feels 10 steps ahead. Because it is. You're not reacting, you're revealing. Not warning out of fear, but out of sacred knowing. So don't shrink back. Don't second-guess yourself just because others refuse to receive. Don't silence your gift to keep the peace. You were born to disturb false peace with real truth. You were anointed to see what others can't, and love them enough to say it anyway. Because eventually, it happens. What you saw, what you sensed, what you said, it unfolds. And then the silence falls. The same mouth that mocked you now tremble. The laughter stops. And your spirit says, "I told you," not out of pride, but out of purpose. The spirit spoke first. Long before anything appeared in the natural, your soul already knew. You didn't need evidence. You didn't need news headlines, scientific data, or a whisper from someone else. Your knowing came straight from the divine. Quiet, firm, unmistakable. It wasn't a guess, it was a message. A stirring in the deepest part of you, where spirit speaks before sound, and time bows to intuition. Chosen one, you've experienced this more times than you can count. You'd wake up with that heaviness in your chest, that sacred discontent. You'd try to brush it off, try to return to normal, but it would linger like a shadow at noon. Not loud, not chaotic, just present. And eventually, it would form words not always verbal, but always clear. You felt it in your gut, like a pull in a direction you couldn't explain. Sometimes, it came as a dream so vivid it jolted you awake, heart racing, spirit wide-eyed. Other times, it came in the stillness, a whisper that pierced the noise, telling you, something is shifting. Prepare. And while others demanded proof, you moved on faith. You didn't wait for validation. You didn't need a second opinion. You trusted what God whispered when no one else was listening. That's how you've always been wired, tuned into a higher frequency. It's why you're misunderstood. It's why people think you're off or intense or too deep. But that depth is your design. You were never meant to float on the surface. Your soul was built to navigate spiritual currents most people don't even know exist. So when the Spirit speaks, you move even if it costs you. And it has cost you, hasn't it? You've lost friends, connections, opportunities. You've said no when everyone else was saying yes, because something in your spirit said, this isn't for you. You've walked away from comfort because the still, small voice said, keep going. And when you tried to explain, blank stares, laughter, dismissal, as if your knowing was just a mood swing or a wild guess. But here's the thing: when the Spirit speaks, it's never random. That inner alarm, it's divine intelligence. You were warned not because you're fearful, but because you're favored. God gives advance notice to His anointed, not to make you anxious, but to make you ready. Let's pause for a moment and remember the story of Lot in the Bible. He wasn't a prophet in the traditional sense. He didn't have scrolls or visions. But he had connection. He had divine insight. And when the destruction of Sodom was imminent, the Spirit warned him. The message was clear: get out, flee, don't look back. It wasn't logic, it was obedience that saved him. And had he waited for evidence, he would have perished with the rest. You, too, have been called to move before the collapse, to prepare while others party, to pack when the skies are still blue. That's the nature of divine warning. It doesn't wait for consensus. And when you speak it out, when you say, I don't know why, but something is off, people scoff. They say you're negative, or overthinking, or always expecting the worst. But what they don't understand is, your spirit isn't reacting to the visible. It's responding to the invisible. And what's invisible now often becomes undeniable later. You've probably had moments where you predicted emotional breakdowns, relational chaos, even major societal shifts, and no one believed you until it happened. And then suddenly, the same people who brushed you off started reaching out, asking questions, remembering your words. And that's when it hits you: the Spirit spoke first. And you were chosen to deliver the message. But that message doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it comes with isolation, with the ache of obedience, with the sting of being right too soon. And still, you carry it. Still, you listen. Still, you move. Because something in you knows. Something in you remembers what it felt like to ignore the Spirit before. And you swore you'd never do that again. The challenge, chosen one, is that most people aren't ready for revelation. They want confirmation without conviction, signs without surrender. They'll listen once it's obvious, but you were designed to hear it while it's still a whisper. You were given ears to hear before the trumpet sounds. That's why you don't fit in, why you don't settle, why you can't just go along with the crowd, even when it would be easier. Your instructions come from a higher place, a holy place. And when you get that divine signal, everything else becomes background noise. Now here's the wild part sometimes. Even you doubt yourself. You feel something shifting, but you question if it's just you. You sense the urgency, but wonder if you're imagining it. And yet, time and time again, the unfolding proves you were right. The Spirit wasn't just whispering. It was warning. So let this be your reminder. Your discernment is not broken. Your intuition is not paranoia. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. It's a feature of your anointing. You are meant to hear what others ignore, meant to feel what others suppress, meant to speak what others deny. And yes, they may laugh now. They may roll their eyes and walk away. But the time always comes when your words return to them. Not as a haunting, but as a confirmation. A moment of clarity that says, wait, they were right, because you weren't speaking from fear. You were speaking from spirit. And while others may wait for proof, you walk by prophecy. You don't need all the pieces to follow the plan. Because when God tells you to go, you go. When He says, speak, you speak. And when He says, warn them, you do it even if they throw stones instead of gratitude. That's what separates the anointed from the average. The world may laugh at you, delay you, even betray you, but it cannot stop the message that burns in your bones. So remember, chosen one, it didn't start in your mind. It started in your spirit. And the Spirit never lies. It always speaks with purpose. And when it chooses you to deliver the message, trust this, it will come to pass. They laughed at you. Then they went silent. Isn't it strange? Chosen one. How the loudest mockers vanish when the storm finally arrives. The ones who once smirked, who rolled their eyes and waved away your concern, suddenly have nothing to say. Their laughter fades into whispers, their sarcasm replaced by stunned silence. And there you stand quiet, not triumphant, but vindicated by truth. You didn't need them to say. You were right. You already knew. But something inside still aches not from pride, but from sorrow. Because all along, your warning wasn't about being correct. It was about trying to protect. You weren't trying to be impressive. You were trying to be obedient. Let's call it what it is, betrayal by dismissal. You opened your heart, exposed your inner knowing, shared what Spirit gave you, and they tossed it aside like dust in the wind. They didn't just ignore your words, they ignored you, your calling, your insight, your role. That kind of rejection cuts deep because it touches the core of who you are. You don't speak often, but when you do, it comes from a place of alignment. And when they laughed, it wasn't just laughter, it was spiritual rejection. It was denial of your role as a mouthpiece for truth. You know what it feels like to be alone in a room full of people alone, not because no one's there, but because no one believes. You've stood in circles where your silence screamed louder than their words, where your eyes said, "Please listen," even as your lips hesitated to speak again after being brushed off so many times. But here's what they never understood. Your warnings were an act of love, not arrogance, not judgment. Love. The kind that dares to disrupt comfort in order to preserve what's sacred. The kind that risks rejection for the sake of revelation. And what's wild is, you kept warning, even after being mocked, even after your voice trembled, even after your heart whispered. What's the point? You still showed up, still spoke up, still reached out. That's what it means to be chosen. It means being called to speak, even when your words fall like seeds on concrete. But some seeds crack the pavement. When things began unfolding exactly as you said, when the betrayal happened, the collapse came. The truth was exposed. Suddenly they remembered your voice, your eyes, your warning. And for a split second, the same people who dismissed you paused and thought, wait, maybe they weren't crazy. Maybe they saw something I couldn't. That pause, chosen one, that moment of realization. It's not just about you being right. It's about them being awakened, finally. And even if they never say it, even if their pride keeps their lips sealed, their spirit felt the impact. They remembered you. They remembered that moment. Think of the biblical Joseph for a moment. Betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, locked in prison, and all the while carrying divine visions. He warned of famine. He interpreted dreams. But no one listened at first. Then famine struck. And suddenly, the boy with the crazy dreams became the man with the keys to survival. Joseph wasn't trying to shine. He was trying to serve. Just like you. They may have laughed when you said the storm was coming. But now they're standing in the rain, drenched and bewildered, remembering the one who told them to carry an umbrella. And while they search for shelter, you stand dry, prepared, and still carrying the compassion to offer them cover. That's what makes you different. Even after all the laughter, all the distance, all the doubt, you still carry love. You still have room in your heart for those who couldn't receive you before. Because you know this isn't about ego. It's about destiny. But let's be real, part of you wants to say, "I told you so." Part of you wants to hold back, to keep walking and never look back at the ones who mocked your message. That's human. And honestly, it's okay to feel that. To feel the sting of betrayal, the ache of being discarded, only to be remembered in crisis. But don't let that pain make you bitter. Let it make you better. Let it refine your compassion. Let it deepen your understanding. Because the very people who laughed at your warning might one day look to you for guidance. And here's the secret they were always watching. Even when they said you were too much, too serious, too deep, they were paying attention, taking mental notes, keeping your words tucked away, just in case. And now that just in case is here. Now they see what you saw. Now they feel what you felt. And even if their mouths can't admit it, their eyes speak volumes. There's a shift in the way they look at you now. It's not laughter anymore. It's recognition. A subtle reverence. They may not bow, but they pause. And that pause is sacred. So don't be surprised when they start circling back. When the ones who ghosted you now reach out. When the conversations reopen. When the same people who dismissed you now crave your insight. It's not flattery, it's spiritual timing. What they couldn't hear before, they're now ready to receive. You didn't change. They did. The truth didn't become truer. It simply became visible. Chosen one. This is the turning point. The moment when your obedience is no longer misunderstood. When your warnings are no longer seen as rants, but as revelations. When your voice is no longer a nuisance, but a necessity. And while they come to terms with what's happened, you'll feel a shift within yourself too. A quiet strength rising, a deeper clarity, a peace that says, I did what I was sent to do, not for recognition, but for alignment, because you were never meant to be the loudest voice. You were meant to be the truest. And truth has a strange way of outlasting the noise. So let them remember the laughter. Let them sit in the silence that follows. And when they finally look back and say, you tried to tell us, you'll simply nod. Not out of pride, but out of peace, because you knew. You always knew. You weren't wrong, you were early. And that chosen one is the part they still don't understand. You weren't mistaken. You weren't delusional. You weren't overthinking. You were ahead of the curve. You were seeing with a spiritual lens while they were still squinting through the fog of illusion. You saw what they couldn't see because you were meant to. That's part of your assignment. It's easy for them to dismiss something that hasn't yet appeared. Easy to laugh at a seed that hasn't broken the soil. But you weren't sent to prove anything. You were sent to reveal, to announce what others haven't yet caught up to be the living preview of what Spirit is preparing to unveil. And sometimes, revelation looks like madness until the moment it unfolds. You've probably been called too intense, too spiritual, or even negative. They thought your discernment was judgment. Your concern was fear. Your insight was criticism. But let me say this clearly, you didn't come to condemn, you came to clarify. Your role wasn't to scold, it was to prepare. You weren't there to stir panic. You were there to sound the bell before the battle. They didn't realize that God often sends the answer before the problem fully forms. That your arrival, your voice, your vision was mercy showing up early. A warning delivered while there was still time to change course. But people don't always recognize help when it doesn't look like comfort. You weren't sent to soothe them with sweet words. You were sent to shift them. And shifts require shaking. So they misunderstood. They labeled you harsh, cold, too direct. But really, your words were fire intended to burn away illusion, not to wound. It's just that truth sounds abrasive when someone's been living in a soft lie. You didn't fail them. You found them. You reached into their spiritual amnesia and tried to awaken something real. And while they hesitated, while they laughed, while they chose comfort over clarity, The timeline moved. Events shifted. The ground beneath their feet began to tremble. And suddenly, they realized you weren't predicting doom. You were preparing hearts. It's important that you understand that this being early is part of your anointing. You are wired to see ahead, to sense what's not yet visible, to hear whispers before they become headlines. That's why you've often felt off compared to others. Why your urgency doesn't match their calm. Why your inner world seems to light up before anything on the outside makes sense. You are a spiritual radar detecting signals long before they register on others' screens. And while it's tempting to resent that role, it's also what makes you invaluable. You are a lighthouse, not a mirror. You don't reflect what's already happening. You reveal what's coming, and that means, yes, you'll often stand alone in your knowing. You'll carry burdens no one sees. You'll weep for what others celebrate. You'll prepare for a storm while everyone else is planning a picnic. It doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're right on time, Spirit's time. Think of Elijah. When famine was coming to the land, he was already in motion. God had him by the brook, fed by ravens, long before the drought became visible. His provision was rooted in his obedience to early instruction. Had he waited for proof, he would have perished. And what about Esther before her people were even aware of the threat? She was already positioned in the palace. Her timing didn't make sense until it did. She wasn't late, she wasn't early, she was in divine sync. That's the rhythm of the chosen, not man's clock, God's calendar. You've walked into places, situations, relationships feeling out of place too soon, too much. But every time, Spirit had a reason. Every time, there was something you were meant to see, feel, or speak before others caught up. And yes, being early hurts, because you often have to grieve what hasn't yet been lost. You cry for futures others still celebrate. You carry wisdom that feels like a curse when no one listens. But it's not a curse. It's a covenant, a sacred agreement between you and the Most High. You were chosen to see differently, because you were chosen to lead differently. Not from a stage, not from a podium, but from the front lines of spiritual reality, ahead of the crowd, eyes wide open, feet already moving. So don't shrink back when others call you crazy. Don't doubt yourself just because you're the only one awake in a room full of sleepers. The truth doesn't need applause, it only needs obedience. And when the day comes, and it will when the thing you saw finally arrives, they'll look to you not with mockery, but with need. And in that moment, your strength will not be in being right, but in being ready. Because you didn't wait for the crowd. You listened to the cloud. You followed the fire. Even when the path was lonely, you trusted the nudge. Even when your mind had questions, you moved on faith, not approval. And now, chosen one, your early arrival becomes their lifeline. So keep showing up early. Keep listening before the world is ready to hear. Keep speaking when your voice shakes. Keep trusting what Spirit shows you, even when others can't see it yet. Because you weren't wrong. You were just the first to wake up. There's a name for what you've experienced, modern-day prophet syndrome. And it doesn't mean you walk around in robes or part the seas. No. Chosen one. It's much quieter than that. More painful too. It means being gifted with insight that feels like a blessing on the outside, but carries the weight of spiritual isolation on the inside. It means seeing clearly while others walk blindfolded, feeling deeply while others numb themselves, knowing while everyone else is still guessing. And yet, like the prophets of old, you didn't ask for this. You didn't audition for it. You were anointed for it. Jeremiah was called the weeping prophet. Why? Because he saw what was coming: destruction, captivity, the unraveling of a people, and no one listened. He warned, he pleaded, he cried, and they ignored him until it was too late. Sound familiar? Or consider Cassandra from Greek mythology. She was given the gift of foresight by the gods, but cursed so that no one would believe her prophecies. She'd see the destruction coming, see the blood, the fire, the betrayal, and cry out, only to be dismissed, mocked, silenced. That's you, isn't it? You've been gifted with spiritual sight, but cursed, in a sense, with earthly rejection. You see betrayal before it surfaces. You sense the collapse before the structure even shakes. You detect deception behind the smiles. And when you try to share what you know, silence, or worse, laughter. It's not that your words aren't clear. It's that their ears aren't open. You carry what's called prophetic burden. It's not just information. It's revelation, and it sits heavy in your chest until you speak it. You can't shake it. You can't unknow what you know. Even if you try to stay quiet, it leaks out in your presence. People feel your frequency, even if they can't articulate why they're uncomfortable around you, because you carry truth. And truth is disruptive. The prophetic role was never meant to be popular. The prophet walks ahead, often misunderstood by those who are still spiritually asleep. And yet, that calling doesn't give you permission to withhold the message. Like fire shut up in your bones, it burns until it's released. You've felt that fire, haven't you? You'll be in a conversation, and spirit starts stirring. You sense you need to speak. Your heart races. Your palms sweat. But your mind says, they won't get it. They'll think I'm crazy. And you wrestle, do I say it or do I swallow it? And yet, every time you do speak, something shifts. Maybe not right away. Maybe not in the way you hoped. But that seed is planted. That moment becomes a spiritual bookmark in someone's story. And when the truth finally catches up to their experience, your words resurface like a lifeline. You've also experienced the emotional aftermath of being right too soon. That strange mix of vindication and sorrow. You didn't want to be right about that breakup, that betrayal, that business deal gone wrong. But you were. And while everyone else scrambles to process the fallout, you're left sitting with the truth you already carried weeks, months, sometimes years ago. That's the ache of the prophet. You're not here to be worshipped. You're here to warn, not to draw attention to yourself, but to draw hearts back to alignment. You are a messenger, And messengers don't control the outcome, they just deliver the mail. But here's what most people forget. Even messengers get weary. You've felt the exhaustion of knowing too much. The mental fatigue of discerning hidden motives. The spiritual burnout from being everyone's lighthouse while navigating your own storms. You've walked into rooms and instantly sensed chaos. You've heard the unspoken words behind a smile. You've picked up on energy shifts before anyone else noticed. And because you see so much, you've had to pretend so often. Pretend you didn't notice. Pretend you're not hurt. Pretend you're okay with being the one who always speaks truth no one wants to hear. But you're not alone in this. Every modern-day prophet has walked that same tightrope. You're part of a hidden remnant, an underground network of souls who carry the light before the dawn. And just like the prophets before you, you're not called to comfort the masses. You're called to wake them up. It's a lonely road. Yes. But it's also sacred. Because you carry keys. Not everyone will take them. Not everyone will even recognize them. But for the few who do, you become a gatekeeper of transformation. Let me tell you this clearly, your words have power. Even when they fall on deaf ears. Even when no one claps. Even when no one responds. Truth, once spoken, never disappears. It echoes. It moves. It stirs. It waits. And when the moment arrives, when the scales fall from their eyes, they will remember you. They will replay your words in their minds. They will search for you again, not for validation, but for guidance, because the one they ignored becomes the one they need. So yes, chosen one, you've been walking in the footsteps of ancient voices. You've been carrying a burden that few understand. But what you've spoken, what you've sensed, what you've warned, it matters. It was never about them listening right away. It was about planting truth that would bloom in the right season. And that season is now unfolding. What they mocked is manifesting. What they dismissed is being delivered. What they laughed at is now undeniable. And there you stand. Not in pride, but in peace. Not as a prophet of doom, but as a vessel of divine timing. You didn't show up to be liked. You showed up to be aligned, because the message isn't yours, it's God's. And when He speaks through you, it must come to pass. So hold your head high. Walk in your calling. And remember, this Cassandra was cursed, not because she was wrong, but because she was right too soon. But you're not cursed. You're chosen. You don't just predict events, you feel them. In your chest, in your gut, in your dreams. The weight of foresight doesn't sit in your mind like data in a file. It rests on your soul like armor you didn't ask to wear. It tightens around your spirit in moments when others are still laughing, still celebrating, still completely unaware. But you already know, chosen one, this burden. It's not random. It's not punishment. It's purpose. You were never meant to be casual about what others take lightly. You feel storms before the sky darkens. You sense endings before goodbyes are said. You carry the emotional residue of things yet to unfold. And most days, you have no choice but to walk around with that knowing while pretending everything is fine. It's not always about specific events. Sometimes, it's just a sense, a vibration, a chill in the air that no one else seems to notice. You could be sitting at dinner, smiling, listening, engaging, and yet deep in your spirit, something's shifting. Something is unraveling beneath the surface. And even though you don't have proof, you feel it with the same intensity as someone witnessing it in real time. That's the weight of being a forerunner in the spirit. You feel things before others even sense them. You mourn things before they're gone. You grieve situations people are still celebrating. And that emotional dissonance, it's exhausting. Because you're carrying the future's impact in the present moment. And yet, you carry it anyway, because that's what you were made to do. Not to absorb everything, but to notice, to discern, to feel what heaven is whispering and translate it into something others might one day understand. But feeling things early doesn't mean you're unstable. It means you're in alignment. People may not understand why you suddenly pull away from situations that look perfectly fine. They may judge your distance, your silence, your sudden boundaries. But what they don't see is the spiritual pressure you've been navigating. What looks like detachment is often discernment. And what they interpret as rejection is often protection for both of you. Let's bring it back to the story of Jesus for a moment. He knew. He felt the betrayal before Judas ever kissed his cheek. He felt the denial before Peter ever opened his mouth. He felt the weight of the cross before he carried it. And still, he walked forward. Not because it didn't hurt, but because he understood the assignment. Chosen one, that's you. You feel the betrayal before it hits. The jealousy before it shows. The shift in the spiritual climate before the leaves even rustle. You walk into places and feel heaviness before anyone says a word. It's not paranoia. It's prophetic insight, and it's heavy. Not all the time, but enough that you've questioned why you're like this. Why you can't just live blindly like others seem to. Why you can't just not care. But the truth is, you do care. Deeply, fiercely, painfully. And that care is part of your calling. There's something sacred about feeling ahead of time. It's not just about warning others. It's also about preparing yourself. God gives you time. Time to process. Time to make peace. Time to get ahead of the collapse. Because while others are caught off guard, you've already grieved, healed, and built again. You are the watchtower, the early warning system, the heartbeat that picks up the rhythm shift before the rest of the body notices. And yes, it comes with misunderstanding, with loneliness, with moments where you look around and think, does anyone else feel this? But trust me, you're not alone. You're just ahead. There's a quiet army of souls just like you carrying what the world doesn't see. Bearing burdens others aren't built for. And though you may never meet them face to face, you're walking the same sacred path. Your emotional radar is not a liability. It's a compass. It leads you into rooms you're meant to shift and out of spaces you're no longer aligned with. It tells you when to speak and when to walk away, when to stay and when to release. And every time you honor it, you grow stronger in your purpose. But let me say this, because I know you need to hear it. You're not too much. You're not too sensitive, too deep, or too emotional. You are tuned in. You are spiritually alive in a world that numbs itself with distractions. You are awake in a dream full of sleepwalkers. And that's not something to apologize for. It's something to protect. You've had to learn how to manage this sensitivity, how to distinguish between anxiety and discernment, between fear and foresight, between emotional overwhelm and spiritual alert. That takes time, maturity, stillness. But you've been growing. You've been learning to trust yourself, to trust the spirit within you. Because here's the truth, and everything you feel is meant to be fixed. Some things are simply meant to be understood. Some burdens aren't yours to carry. They're just there to inform your posture, to shift your perspective, to guide your next step. So if you feel heavy right now and can't explain why, it's okay. If you feel something building in the atmosphere and no one else notices, breathe. You're not imagining it. You're not broken. You're not crazy. You're called. And that inner knowing, it's not confusion. It's confirmation. Chosen one. You carry foresight because you carry fire. Not fire that burns for destruction, but fire that purifies, that reveals, that prepares the path ahead. And sometimes, that fire will isolate you, not to punish you, but to refine you, because what you carry is holy, and not everyone is ready for it. But you are, so take a deep breath. You're not too early. You're not too emotional. You're not overthinking. You're aligned. You're walking in step with spirit. And every time you feel something before it happens, remember, your gift is working exactly as it should. The weight you carry is not in vain. It's a warning wrapped in wisdom. And that wisdom is your anointing. Spiritual discernment is not delusion. Read that again. Slowly. Let it sink in. Chosen one. The moments you've questioned your sanity, those weren't signs that you were losing touch with reality. They were signals that your soul was waking up to a deeper one. You've been made to see, to sense, to know things that others can't fathom. And because your understanding runs so much deeper than logic, it often gets labeled as irrational. But it's not irrational. It's revelatory. This world doesn't honor the unseen. It praises data, visibility, things that can be measured and tracked. But you were not designed to operate by human metrics. You move by frequency, by spirit. And that means your discernment won't always make sense to minds that are still asleep. But just because someone else doesn't understand, it doesn't make it untrue. How many times have you felt something off about a situation, only to have it confirmed later? How many times did you hold back, pull away, step aside, only for truth to rise to the surface weeks or months down the line? That's not delusion. That's divine protection. Your spiritual radar has kept you from disaster more times than you'll ever know. But here's the thing, when you're walking in that level of sensitivity, the line between perception and revelation can feel thin. There were seasons where you even asked yourself, am I imagining this? Because you felt something so strongly, yet no one else was reacting. And that inner war between spirit and doubt, it's real. It's intense. But it's also necessary. Because every time you choose to trust your discernment, even in the absence of validation, you grow stronger in your assignment. You move from uncertainty into clarity, from second-guessing into spiritual precision. What others call overthinking is often just spiritual decoding. You're scanning energies, interpreting silence, reading body language, listening for the subtext. You hear what isn't said. You see what's being hidden. You feel what's being ignored. And that level of discernment is not a defect. It's a defense. You were given this for a reason. Imagine if Esther had dismissed her discernment when Mordecai warned her about Haman's plot. Imagine if she had said, "That seems unlikely. Maybe I'm just being dramatic." She didn't have concrete evidence, but she had wisdom, timing, and a spiritual instinct. And because she moved in alignment, she saved a nation. That's what your discernment is capable of deliverance, not just for you, but for others around you. And yet, many around you won't understand it. They'll call you paranoid because they don't know how it feels to be able to walk into a room and feel spiritual tension pressing on your skin. They'll call you cold or distant because they don't understand that when your spirit says, "Pull back," it's not rejection, it's preservation. They'll call you negative for sensing danger while everyone else is chasing excitement. But don't let their labels override your knowing. Discernment is not just about danger, it's about direction. It's not just about avoiding harm, it's about aligning with divine timing. There are some paths that seemed good, that looked safe, that felt right, until the Holy Spirit whispered, "Not this way." And when you listened, you were spared. That voice within you, that still, small voice. It's never steered you wrong, but I know how lonely it feels. I know the toll it takes to constantly be the one who knows. To feel things others deny. To see cracks in foundations that others keep painting over. Sometimes, you wish you could just turn it off. Live a normal life. Just go with the flow. But you weren't made for normal. You were made for nuance, for layers, for the depths. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to cut through, to bring clarity, to walk into chaos and feel the truth under the noise. That's why people either feel deeply comforted by your presence or deeply confronted. Because your spirit doesn't just bring vibes. It brings truth, and truth shakes things up. You've probably noticed that some people distance themselves from you for reasons they can't explain. They'll say, "I don't know. I just feel weird around you." Or, "You're just intense." That's not about you. That's about what their spirit feels when it comes into contact with yours. When someone's hiding from truth, they don't always want to be near someone who embodies it. You don't even have to speak. Your discernment speaks for you. So stop apologizing for your energy. Stop downplaying your gift. Stop trying to make others comfortable by silencing your knowing. You're not here to keep peace. You're here to reveal truth. And that truth might shake their foundation. It might rattle their pride. But it will also save their soul. And let's be real. Your discernment has saved you, too. How many relationships did you avoid because you listened to that quiet nudge? How many jobs, partnerships, entanglements did you step away from, only to find out later what was really going on behind the scenes? You may not have had proof, but you had permission to walk away. And that permission was your protection, chosen one. You're not crazy. You're not doing too much. You are highly attuned to a spiritual reality that most people are not trained to recognize. And while they may scoff, laugh, or question you stand in the truth of who you are not making this up. You are made for this. So, trust it, honor it, strengthen it. Don't second-guess the gift God has placed inside of you. When your spirit speaks, listen. Even if it costs you approval, even if it separates you from the crowd, even if you have to walk alone for a while. Because you're not walking alone, you're walking in alignment, and alignment will always take you further than applause. So, next time that inner alarm goes off, don't ignore it. Don't talk yourself out of it. Don't wait for confirmation from someone who doesn't even carry your frequency. Move, speak, obey. Because your discernment is divine, and that divinity is your compass. And now, it's happening just like you said it would. The very thing they rolled their eyes at. The outcome they swore would never come. The shift you predicted when all seemed stable, it's unfolding right before their eyes. And not just in the way you mentioned, but in exactly the way your spirit foresaw, word for word, step by step, and suddenly, the room goes quiet. No one's laughing now. No more sarcastic chuckles. No more accusations of paranoia. Now, they're looking at you differently. With that stunned silence that only comes when the truth shows up wearing the clothes you described long before it ever walked in. Chosen one, this is your confirmation, not the kind you asked for, but the kind God ordained. The moment you realize that everything you felt, everything you warned about, everything you discerned in your gut, it wasn't delusion. It was divine revelation. And it's not just playing out around you. It's being confirmed through you. This is your vindication. But hear me clearly, it's not about being proven right. It's about being seen for who you are. You were never just guessing. You were never just emotional. You were operating on another level, a higher dimension, a spiritual bandwidth most people aren't equipped to understand. Until now, they're starting to see it. Maybe they can't admit it out loud. Maybe pride has their tongues tangled. But deep in their spirit, they know. You were trying to tell them. You were trying to protect them. You were trying to prepare them. And now, with the fallout raining down, your earlier words echo like thunder behind lightning. Let that sink in. You didn't need a mic drop. God dropped the moment for you. But this isn't about revenge. Don't let your heart drift there. Don't let vindication harden your compassion. This isn't about rubbing it in their faces. No, this is about rising into your assignment. You weren't chosen to gloat. You were chosen to guide. Because what's coming next is not just the storm. It's the calling that follows it. You've been through the silence, the mockery, the rejection, and now comes the season of authority. Not arrogance. Authority. Spiritual confirmation always comes before spiritual elevation. When the very thing you predicted unfolds, It becomes the divine cue that you are ready to lead, to teach, to prepare others for what they can't see yet. This is not the end of your story. This is the beginning of your reign. And no, not everyone will come back and say, "You were right." But that doesn't matter anymore. Because your spirit knows, your soul rests. You don't need human affirmation when you have heavenly validation. Now's the time to step fully into your assignment. You've been faithful with the gift, even when it isolated you. You've spoken truth, even when your voice shook. You've warned, even when they mocked. And now, Spirit is confirming everything. Don't minimize it. Don't doubt it. Don't let humility cause you to shrink when God is trying to establish you. You've been trained through experience, sharpened through rejection, refined through silence. And now you rise. Because this isn't just about this one moment that proved you right. This is about the pattern, the purpose, the positioning. You're not here by accident. You're not seeing these things just to be spiritual. You are a vessel, a prophet, a voice crying out. Not from the wilderness, but into it. And the wilderness is listening now. So speak with authority. Move with confidence. Listen even deeper than before. Because now that Spirit has confirmed your discernment, more will be entrusted to you. Higher clarity, greater assignments, bigger responsibilities. Because God can trust you now. The silence didn't break you. The laughter didn't crush you. The delay didn't erase your knowing. You remained aligned. And because of that, you are being elevated, chosen one. This was never about one moment of being proven right. It was about growing into the soul who could hold truth even when the whole world tried to bury it. And now, that truth has risen, and so have you. Take a deep breath. Chosen one, let it all settle. What you've carried, what you've seen, what you've sensed. It was never your imagination. It was your assignment. And now, heaven has confirmed it. You're not losing your mind. You're not making it up. You are in alignment with divine timing. Let that give you peace. Let it give you rest. You fought hard to keep your clarity. You've endured seasons of silence, of isolation, of spiritual heaviness, and still, you listened. Still, you obeyed. Still, you spoke when Spirit nudged you, even when your voice was the only one in the room. Now, it's your time. Time to stand in what you know. Time to walk in the authority that's always been yours. Time to trust yourself the way God trusts you. And as you step forward, know this: you are not alone. Spirit walks with you. Angels guard you. Favor follows you. There is protection around your purpose. And no mockery, no doubt, no delay can cancel what heaven has appointed. You are covered. You are called. And now, you are confirmed. If this message spoke to your soul, take a moment, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Let others hear what you now know, that being misunderstood doesn't mean you were wrong. It often means you were early. Stay aligned, stay faithful, and remember, chosen one. God bless you.